Goro, welcome back to the New Property Show. 10 properties, 10 years, almost 10 appearances for you.
That's right. Thanks for inviting me back, Steve. It's always a pleasure.
Fantastic. So today we're going to discuss SDA. What does that even stand for?
So a lot of people out there have heard about the hype around NDIS housing. That's probably the incorrect term. The correct term is specialist disability accommodation. So it's not everyone on the NDIS that is eligible for housing, otherwise there'd be 500,000 plus people in Australia. It's only the top 6% of disabilities who have specialist needs that the government pays for accommodation once they find a house.
So this is the high end, so NDIS being, I guess, the entry level. So you'd normally go, what, residential housing, we go the co-living, we go NDIS, is SDA as high as it goes?
No, there's no such thing as just pure NDIS housing.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
In fact, there was in the old system what they call SRSs, which has been in the news, supported residential facilities. They've been in the news over the last little while because effectively what they used to do was kidnap residents from places, right? I'm not even kidding, Google this. It's crazy the amount of unethical stuff that happened previously. So the government decided to scrap all the old ways, and they're still transitioning, and only pay for accommodation for the top 6% of disabilities. That's where the higher cash flow comes in if you can find someone to reside in a custom-built home for that purpose.
Okay, so these SDA homes for the top 6% of disabilities, there's obviously a lot of perks and a lot of people here, thousands of dollars per week rental income, a lot of people trying to sell them. But how do you get this right? Like, obviously it sounds too good to be true, but I don't think this would want to be my first investment because it sounds like high return, high risk.
Yes, and you're actually not far off the mark there, Steve. So it is a higher risk, higher reward product. Without playing financial planner on TV, I genuinely don't encourage people for their first investment property to purchase as an NDIS property because there is higher risk involved, especially if you're just buying from a sales agent. One of the key things is it's got to be married up with where the tenancy demand is. So if we're looking at pure data, and data drives this entire property market, right? And so the reason why we can rent out normal property is because the data says we have enough residents for a normal property. Similarly, for a specialist disability accommodation property, if we look at Victoria data, for example, Victoria data, there's only 6,900 residents across all of Victoria who have got access to the funding. And out of that, only 30% of them are currently looking for new accommodation out of 4 different categories. So it's a very niche market. There isn't space for, thousands of properties to be built every year. It's maybe hundreds of properties to be built every year altogether.
Well, it sounds like a tough gig. At the end of the day, a wide net. It'd be probably easier for you to just sell residential housing for the many.
Yes.
And you're dealing with the 1%.
Yes.
Why do you like SDA?
Because I've been in the, residential sales game for quite a while, and I decided after I declined an invitation with Richard Branson on his island, it was a long story for probably a few years, to focus all of my efforts on disability and social housing. And it wasn't easy, and part of it was doing it ourselves first because I believe leaders go first. So we raised $10 million worth of friends and family capital, literally built the plane while it was flying, right? And we were the very first people to ever build the NDIS for specialist disability accommodation as a privately owned provider.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Now, I've caught up with you a few times at some galas and dinners, and you said you've got some new products coming out. What's new in the property market that's coming out?
I love that. And so we're innovating beyond just, selling house and land style products. 2 things that's happening in our space. So a lot of NDIS builds that we can do for specialist disability accommodation in Victoria. If there's someone that's got land that wants to subdivide, there is town planning exemptions available if you work with a reputable provider like ourselves. So, for example, if you're splitting a block into 2, building them as NDIS, we can get town planning exemptions relatively easily. So that's a huge win for people that are, say, in the eastern suburbs where there's a massive undersupply of NDIS housing. By the way, those that are looking to invest in Werribee in the west probably don't look at those areas for that particular purpose. Now, the second product we're about to launch is actually basically a fund where people can co-invest in properties using the superannuation and the like in 100K chunks effectively.
So bricks and mortars business.
Yes.
With literally brick by brick, pardon the pun.
Yes.
With $100,000 investments.
Yes.
So I think the advantage is there too is they've got a bit of protection because they're going in with, a syndicate or a group of people. Have you successfully launched that yet, or is that something that's underway?
We're at pre-launch stage, so we're taking an expression of interest right now. We intend to actually do the launch in a month's time. We're doing really cool things like 8% guaranteed yield. Even though I don't like the word guarantees, this is comparing to other funds. So we're competing in that space with a 15 to 25% maturity buyout in 3 years.
We did talk about this prior to here, and you've thrown yourself in the deep water. Yes. The word rental guarantees.
Oh, yes.
I know. So before we wrap up, rental guarantees, thoughts on them?
Right. So rental guarantees, first I'll talk about my thoughts on rental guarantees, then I'll talk about them in the SDA space.
Excellent.
So in general, rental guarantees, someone's always paying, right? It could be the landlord or the management agent who's tacked on a little bit more. There's always someone paying for a guarantee, and it's notorious in the apartment market especially, where I've seen these 7 or 8% guaranteed yields, and I know that the apartments have been overpriced by 50, 100,000, even more in some cases. Now, that might ruffle a few feathers, but the other thing is, in the NDI space, I'm seeing people offer guarantees. And more of these people that are offering guarantees are just sales agents. The key in the NDI space is not to deal with a sales agent, to deal with a provider.
Excellent.
Right? Now, if a provider's offering too many guarantees and doesn't have enough residents, then there's a high chance that provider's going to go sideways. And I've seen the top providers of guarantees in this space already go into liquidation or change their names and phoenix themselves out of a guarantee.
Sounds a little bit pyramid scheme. It seems like you're literally you're getting on another client to get the guarantee to pay for that.
Yes.
Okay, so rental guarantees, and I like your advice there, is, and even though I said I do some marketing myself, going directly to the source.
Yes.
I think particularly in any investment, obviously having the right team, but it's so important to go to somebody that practice what they preach. And why I keep getting you back on these episodes is that you're always innovating. You're the forefront. And I know that you don't do anything or recommend anything without testing yourself. So I think it's also known as ethical sales.
Yes.
So I want to thank you today for being on the New Property Show. Can't wait, and congratulations on your new launch. And would love to hear more about that business and how that's progressing when you come back again.
Thanks, Steve.